Welcome back to Contemporary Black Voices right here at Black Video Network. And I always like to acknowledge our producer and the person that allows us to do this and makes it happen, Carl Booker. So, Caleb, Chris, before we went on break, we said we would come back and talk about is race a social construct? And that's what the lady was saying in the 1619 project, that it is a social construct. How do you respond to that?
And so I have a problem with that statement because I believe that it's biological, and so I know originally the way that race was explained, it was originally scientifically they were saying it was 5 races. I know that's been revisited, and so now they were saying that there's a 99% commonality between the races. And so they've kind of, and again, I think it's more of the far left Harvard scientific community that has kind of revisited that and are saying that it's more of a social construct than it is biological.
Would you say you said 99% of
genetic commonality is what they're saying. 99% genetic commonality
among other races
between the races.
So,
and so
what's that 1% that it's not?
I guess that 1% is what determines who gets sickle cell, who doesn't. Or the 1%, it determines who gets cystic fibrosis and who does it, or who gets melanoma and who doesn't. And so I guess that's that 1% that they're talking about.
Okay, get back to the subject. Chris, you kind of looked at this a different way, didn't you?
Well, I think Caleb takes this from a academic standpoint. I do believe that race is a social construct, but I also believe in what Caleb is saying from an academic standpoint. But I believe that what white folks have done in this country is they don't want to really look at the academic standpoint of it. They want to look at the social construct and to construct it in what's going to be beneficial to them. It's the same way that we're looking at history, that they're saying they don't want history. Everything that is factual, they're trying to do away with. And so that's my point about it.
The myth and the reality.
Right.
Yeah. So how would, well, you said 99% commonality?
That's what they
Well,
said. So genetically,
that makes some white people mad, boy. Whoa.
And so, like I said, the far right is there's some elements of the far right, some what they call, I guess, the neo-Nazi elements, or some of the alt-right elements that are trying to say that because of the scientific studies, the new genetic studies that are saying that Europeans have anywhere between 1% to 4% or up to 4% of their DNA comes from Neanderthal, and they're trying to say that because the Neanderthal skull is larger, that they have more, they had a larger brain and more capacity. Thus, that the European has a larger brain than the African, who's purely Homo sapien.
So why would she say that race is a social construct? I mean, what's behind that?
Again, I think it's more of your liberal academia who's trying to revisit that, but it doesn't explain away a lot of the biological differences. And so there are clear biological differences between the races as far as the amount of melanin in our skin, how sunlight, the conversion of our skin, the way it converts sunlight to vitamin D, whereas in other people it can be fatal. And so there are true biological differences between the races. And so again, the idea that it's just a social construct is I don't know, it's beyond me.
Yeah. Do we have skin cancer at the same rate that white people do?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So that's a difference, right?
That's the difference. The rate in the development of cystic fibrosis is completely different. The rate in sickle cell is different. It's 1 in 12 African Americans, as opposed to, was it 0.02% of white folks. So it's completely different.
So if it was a social construct, sickle cell should be in white people just like in black people, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They want to share everything else. Let's share,
Share that
let's
too.
share that too.
Yeah. Well, I think from the standpoint of the social construct,
Mm-hmm.
it was good for those people who wanted to rank
Mm-hmm.
the races. And they always put black at the very, very bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I know in Thomas Jefferson's Notes on Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
which he was trying to justify slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he did a scientific study of the African. And one thing he found out, and this is absurd, he said, they have an inability to pass stuff out of their normal way, so it comes out in their skin, and they have bad odor.
Right.
Now, think about that. You're in the field for 15 hours, no showers, but I guess you do have bad odor.
I guess it means she must have not smelled too bad, did she?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
And then the whole idea that one of those racial theorists said that God created a scale of race, and at the highest were whites.
right. Okay.
And in beauty, the most beautiful woman was a white woman. The least attractive woman was a black woman. And so all other men races will appeal to the white woman.
white woman.
So they said, well, who's going to appeal to the black woman? And this guy actually said, the orangutan.
No,
The
orangutan.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
And they'd be just as happy with the orangutan as with a human being.
Well,
That,
I mean, but
that
just
was put out there, and
just-
that's that social. I think that's a
Right.
social construct.
Just take it
because
back.
it's justification.
Right.
And the problem, to me, the problem with that is that didn't die with slavery.
no.
If it had died with slavery, then they would have had no problem
Right.
bringing us into, the larger society.
Right.
But that's stuck, and it's still here today.
Right.
I was listening to this guy, Clay on.
Oh, on this.
So this white guy called in, and they get into a difference of opinion, and Clay's beating his butt in the exchange, and the white guy ends up saying, "You nigger,"
And hang
he's
it
like,
up.
yeah,
And hang
he
it
hung
up. Of course.
So that was his way of saying, "I'm still superior. You're still down there
Right.
in the social construct at the very bottom
Right.
of the totem pole."
Right.
And he felt good because he thought, "Now, okay, everything's
Right.
even."
This is going to be the end of the debate. I'm gonna,
Yeah.
One
This
word
is it.
going to end
That
it all.
ends
Yeah.
it all. Yeah.
And
And-
see, you know what though? But just saying that, just say that's the problem with when you talk about 1619 Project. That's the problem when you talk about critical race theory. And when Black folks get a sense of their own history and get a sense of their own accomplishments, global accomplishments, their contribution to civilization, it changes the conversation. It changes the way we feel about each other. It changes the way we feel about each other's products and goods and services. It changes the way we deal with each other. And so it eliminates everything that they've done for the last 400 years. It destroys it. It destroys that myth that we have no contributions to civilization. We have no contributions to this country. And so that's what the entire thing is about. It's about keeping you inferior. And so that's why they want to hide your history, to eliminate your history, and to wipe you from any kind of respectful commentary on history.
Well,
And
if I can,
that's what it's about.
if I can, Caleb and Fred, then I would ask the question, then what's going to cause there to be a change in that? How are we going to combat that? We cannot teach our people, because if we try to teach people with the 1619 Project, they say that's hogwash, it's propaganda. We can't have our own community like Black Wall Street because we're looking at we appear to be too successful, so they bomb that. Okay, we can't do anything we attempt to do. We cannot do, and that right now, in my opinion, has to change. And the question is, how do we change it?
I think it's changed. Just going back to prior to Brown versus Board of Education, and President Eisenhower made the statement to the Supreme Court justice that laws cannot change attitudes. No, laws can't. But as you go through generations and generations with the law change, it's eventually going to change attitudes. Teaching in Northwest Vista, I'd never taught in the South before, and I was teaching government, and half those white kids came in there, and they didn't see it. They didn't see a black instructor anymore. They said, "How difficult is it going to be to get an A?" That's all they were concerned about. And you did have one or two that came in with those attitudes, but I watched the dynamics among those kids, and it changed, and it changed their attitudes. Now, prior to, if there hadn't been a integration, then black kids would have only gone to St. Philip's. White kids would have gone to their white schools. And there never been that interchange. And that interchange is so important in the classroom because you can break, those kids grow up their whole life with the operable word for a black person, the N-word.
Right.
Now all of a sudden they walk in the classroom, here's an N-word teacher.
Right.
You know?
I understand that. I understand. And I understand that as far, and it does. I mean, it does when you have that diversity in the classroom, and it does lead to exchange of ideas. It breaks down barriers. So it's something to be said about that. It's also something to be said about kids having safe spaces to learn and really express themselves and getting down to the nitty gritty. So I can see it from both standpoints. To again, and what Chris is saying about as far as it changes. I remember my daughter in kindergarten coming home and saying, these are kindergartners, and saying that my friend said Barack Obama is the worst president in history. And so she heard this from her class. Of course, her class was predominantly white.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean, I knew then. I'd already known, but I knew then that my tact with their education was going to be different. Last night, me and my daughter had an hour-long conversation about the stuff that we had a conversation about, as far as about resources and about Congo and about hydroelectric. And I sit there, and my daughter, she's 16, and so we sat there and we talked about history, and we talked about African history and African American history.
Yeah,
and I do it all the time because I don't depend on this thing. I mean, and I say, look, please go to college and get all the education you can get. And after you get their education, you take it for what it's worth, and you continue your education, because they're not going to teach you what you need to learn as far as history goes. So you continue that education. You use this. The education they're going to give you is just a foundation. That's it, and you have to build upon that. So I don't rely upon these folks to educate my kids.
Are we going back to the times where we have to hide to be able to teach our kids or anybody else about Black history? You can't teach it in schools, okay?
Right.
And our churches have definitely, I mean, the conversation that we're having on this program, we have never seen from any of the churches to give us that type of information. They've never even posed the problem. I'm not asking for a solution, but they've never even posed the problem.
But do they teach a liberation theology? They don't really teach a Black liberation theology anymore.
No, they don't.
They don't.
That day is gone.
And it's long gone. And so when you have the thing that church teaches you more, the most thing
Today
is
Time. Give me your money. Give me your money.
So I mean, the idea, to be honest with you, the idea of ATM machines in churches,
is incredible, isn't it?
it is.
Absolutely
It
incredible.
is. That's right there in the scripture. That's one of the seminal passages in the scripture. Jesus overturning the money changers in the church.
Right.
And they have ATM machines in the churches now. The church is about, even this idea, I hear Black folks defending this. The preacher he's in a $30 million private jet. He has a $500,000 Rolls Royce. And he made it by selling his books. But what were his books about? His books were about the word. So he's still profiting off of the word.
Yeah.
And so I have a big issue. I don't believe there should ever be a mega church in existence as long as one person on this planet is hungry.
Yeah.
So this is not the subject for me.
Hey, I was at the barbershop one time, and there were some members, some brothers from different churches. You believe those brothers were arguing about whose minister had the biggest Mercedes. I'm listening. I say, I can't believe it. And then when you question it, they use the term, well, God wants you to prosper.
No.
But the problem is not prosper off everybody.
No, to my understanding, Jesus wanted you to feed the poor and administer to the sick. He wants you to take care of each other. He didn't have a church. Jesus taught in the open.
Yeah.
And so this idea that you have this mega structure,
Capitalism comes to church.
Capitalism, get ready to say that.
Yeah.
Capitalism comes to church.
That's it. You know what I mean? I tell you what, when we talked about W.B. Du Bois, and so when he went to go study in Europe, right? One of his contemporaries was Max Weber.
Yeah.
And Max Weber is the father of sociology, right?
Yeah.
And Max Weber, people might know Max Weber. He's the one that says the state maintains a monopoly on violence within its borders. So you probably heard of him.
Bureaucratic state.
Right. So his whole thing, his seminal treatise was about the relationship between religion and economics, right? And so even when he studied the way different religions have an effect on the country's economics, one of the things he did say, he said this to him. He said when Europeans choose between religion and economics, they will always choose economics. That's what he said. And this is the father of sociology.
Wow.
So he said it about his own folks.
Do you think that's true about us?
About us?
Black people? Religion over economics over
No.
religion?
I think it's opposite with us.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
Opposite,
We're
completely
spiritual.
opposite.
We're
We're
much
more
more
spiritual.
spiritual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. The amount of
But, hey,
religiosity in the black
But
community.
that's how the
is a
minister
big
gets
problem.
to us with the economics.
Yeah, that's it. That's how he gets goes into economics.
Yeah, that is it. You know what I mean? And so he's driving a Cadillac, and Sister Johnson over here is getting her lights cut off. And that's the problem. That's the problem. So
And then he tells her to come to his private room and he'll counsel her.
I was at a church in D.C. and it was time to give your offering. And the minister had this sister come up and say, "I had all I had was money to pay my rent or do my tithe, and God told me do the tithe and I'll take care of you. So I did the tithe. Monday morning, a check arrives twice the amount of money that I tithe." And so, people believe in that.
yeah,
That check just appeared.
yeah.
And the minister set her up to do that
Yeah.
to get people to tithe.
Yeah.
But that leads us to capitalism. We don't have much time, but I want to touch on this subject real quick.
Yeah, please.
The idea that capital was built on the backs of slavery,
Right.
and that everything about America is still touched by slavery.
It is.
So, do you accept what she's saying?
Absolutely.
Is capitalism was built on the backs of slavery.
Absolutely. And excuse me, you have that amount of free labor. Of course, you're gonna surpass your contemporaries who didn't have that kind of free labor. And so, America was able to build its infrastructure. And when you're able to build your infrastructure for free, and produce goods for sale, and the production of those goods, the labor to produce those goods was free. So absolutely, and it's touched everything since then. And so I think people underestimate the value that African culture has added to the United States. In order for America to sell its products and goods, people have to buy into to American culture. When you think about it, when I want you to think about Japanese culture and our perception of Japanese culture, it was a culture of efficiency. And so after we came out of the oil crisis, people wanted efficiency, so they turned to Japanese cars because that was their culture. People want German engineering, and so that's their culture. They're engineers.
Right.
So in order to buy, we have to buy into German culture, and we want to get Mercedes and BMW. So our biggest export, our biggest product, our biggest assistance was our culture. We made American culture cool through our music, through our literature, through
Absolutely.
through everything. And so in order for people to want to buy the rest of America's crap, they had to buy into America's culture first. So our contributions to this country's economic wealth is almost incalculable.
Okay.
And so that's what I'll touch on the other thing that we talked about a little, if I have a chance. The prison, the slavery moving from the open fields to behind the prison cell, or if you want to save that for another day, we can save that for
No,
another
tell
day.
me about that
No,
now.
we
Tell-
need to save that for another
We'll
day,
save that?
'cause we gotta
Okay.
take a break here.
Okay.
I want to get your comments on this. Is slavery,
Mm-hmm.
capitalism built on the backs of slavery?
Oh, I agree with everything Caleb has just said. I agree with that.
Okay, we'll take a break here, and when we come back, it will be hot topics time.